Welcome to Manhattan College CFP Information Session. Today we have Tim Hummel. He's going to go over the process of going through the CFP process. My name is Troy Calhoun. I'm the Assistant Director of Non-Credit Program here at Manhattan College. So Tim, I'm going to stop talking and I'll hand it over to you.
Part of it is just the benefits. Like, what are the benefits of obtaining the CFP? And, we see here CFP professionals, they tend to know more on a holistic level of planning. There's a lot of things going on out there today where we're trying to get people to look more holistically. A lot of companies are trying to look at things more holistically. The old days of thinking of financial planning is just your investment portfolio. And that's, if you walk out on the street and you tell somebody, hey, I'm a financial planner, the first thing they think of is investments a lot of times. That's not really what's there, right? There's a huge world of financial planning that has nothing to do with your investment portfolio. And that's really what we try to help people understand is there's a more broad view of what's going on in the actual world of financial planning. It is the most recognized. And we tell students that come through and people that talk to us, there are other designations out there, but really at the end of the day, the CFP designation is the one that people will look for. And, I talk to students that are looking to come into a program and I say, well, the clients you want to have, right? The financial planning clients that you're wanting to work with, and that might be targets of firms, they want the CFP designation. They want somebody who knows the holistic broad scope of planning, not just, the one-off segmented, can I, help you out with an investment or help you pick a stock or something like that. There is also a competitive advantage. Many employers are now seeking out the CFP designation and when they're looking at job candidates. So that does help as well. And there's more income. You look at the income scale, those who with CFP, those without the CFP. So this is just kind of how do we get entice students to want to pursue this curriculum? Money talks, right? And so when you have this designation, just looking at the numbers and what it looks like over the long run, you will earn more. There's more earning power there because you have this designation. You're in more in demand. How is our program structured? Well, there's 7 courses. So this is all per the CFP board. We have to have these courses. So there's 7 courses that are there. Each course is going to be broken down into 10 lessons. So the 10-month program, 4 weeks, each module. We got kind of the weekend format. If you see here, a Friday, Saturday, and then 2 Saturdays is the typical model of how we run the classes. It is long days. And I do talk to students about this. The good news about this program is it's structured. The bad news about this program is it's structured. And that's kind of the good and the bad. We see a lot of people that try to go at it on the self-paced study. And this is kind of something that you can say to somebody who's thinking, hey, I'm just going to do this on demand on the self-paced side. A lot of people start that self-paced side and they're all excited, right, when they get going. The problem is that wears off, doesn't it? And 6 months later, they're still in the first module or maybe just getting into the second module. They're not making any progress through the content. Whereas in a structure like this, in 10 months, you're going to be finished if you just follow the program. And so it's one of those where it's the good and the bad is the fact that these are the committed times, but you also know that this is the committed times that are going to be finished. And so it's something that we try to put out there, really just kind of the person that wants to do this, if they have the drive to do it, because you got to have the drive to do this program. It's not an easy curriculum. The CFP, no matter where you go, is not an easy curriculum. This is something that it's very rigid. It's the rigor is there. The material that we're going to discuss is there, the depth. And so you got to have the drive to be able to do it. But it is a weekend format, and we do that so that we do not have to take a lot of time out of the workday for somebody who, is a working professional. We do allow an audit. What an audit would be is somebody who may have already completed the CFP certification curriculum that's required by the CFP board, but they haven't done it. They did it maybe a few years ago and things change, right? Financial planning is always changing. Tax laws, estate laws, rules, things like that are always changing. And so part of this is if somebody maybe has completed the program a few years back, but they don't feel they're ready to go sit and do a review and sit for that exam. They want a kind of refresher. There is an audit available where they can sit through the program, not for credit, at a reduced rate, and they're able to partake in the class like they would. They're just not getting a grade, but it's a way to kind of get some people in the class. And also, sometimes those audit students who have seen this before can help the class. They bring a different perspective to things and so forth. So it's not a bad idea to have a couple of those maybe mixed in. Then the cost of the program, again, for those who are looking to take the program, $800 a class is including the course material. Capstone's a little bit more because there's more time. There's more of a required time element for capstone course. The capstone is the last class that we would take. Obviously, there's no application fee or anything like that for this program. So each class, each of the 7 modules, you have 10 lessons. Each of the 10 lessons, after that lesson, we have a quiz. And so we will quiz you on the material right away. Each of the modules will have anywhere from 2 to 3 case studies where we give you 3 to 5 pages of information about a client, prospective client, kind of like an intake. And then you ask a series of 10 to 15 questions about that client, about the case that we just read, recommendations, observations, things like that. Those are the case studies that are there. And then you have a final exam after every module as well. Each module also has what we call a financial planning or building a client component to it. What we do to satisfy our capstone requirement, we have each student build a client through a module process. So in general principles, we have a big intake that we help them with. Basically create the client. You are creating a client that in capstone, you're going to do a financial plan for. So it's helping you with the collecting of data as we go through all the modules. So it kind of helps with that, learning how to collect data. Do I have adequate data to help do a financial plan? Do I need to collect more data from the client? Do I need to ask more questions? Things like that. And then when we get to capstone, we actually do a financial plan for that client that you've been building the whole time. Part of the process is we've got to have you build a client that has some problems, right? If I build the perfect client throughout the modules, then why do they need to hire you to do a financial plan? So we do have to kind of make some embedded problems with that client as we go through. And that's some of the stuff that we massage and kind of work with. Part of it is to make sure that you're learning some of the things that we keyed on in the modules and so forth, and how do we actually apply it in a real life situation rather than just regurgitating or memorizing and taking a quiz or an exam or something like that. Okay, so we do want some application there, maybe thinking outside the box with some of these. The course materials for this program are included in the tuition. So you get a textbook, you get this on workbook, plus you get case studies, quizzes, exams, and so forth. Okay, that's all included. There's no extra material cost or anything like that. Student responsibility, what do they need to do? This is kind of a big question that we get. What do students need to do here in class? We expect you to pre-read the material before you come to class. Again, we're going to cover out of the 10 lessons, we're going to cover probably 3.5 lessons a weekend. Each of those lessons might be 10 to 15 pages long. We're not expecting you to read it, do the work, do the questions, things like that before you come to class, but we do expect the student to have an idea of what we're actually going to cover that weekend. I don't see this as being any more than about an hour to an hour and a half of time outside of class to kind of peruse through the material, at least understanding the topics that we're going to look at. So you have an idea of how familiar you are. Some students will come to a topic that we're going to cover that weekend, and due to their work history or knowledge or experience and things they've done, they might not need to spend much time going over it. It might be something that, hey, I feel pretty comfortable with this. I'm just going to roll into class and see what I can learn. Others, it might be like going on a Martian mission, right? And it's completely foreign to them, and they're going to have to really make sure they pay attention when they get into class, and there's going to be a lot of questions, but at least gives them an idea of what they got to look. Expect students to bring the textbooks to class, the workbook, and they're going to need a financial calculator. We require for our courses that are being done, the 10B2, we do teach how to use different financial calculators. The problem is, and I just kind of picture this, when you're doing a Zoom class like we are here, and it's a virtual class, if I have students with 4 or 5 different calculators, just think about how long that takes to teach calculations using 4 or 5 different calculators, because we've got to go through each calculation 4 or 5 different times, and we could be doing 10 pages, could take 4 or 5 hours. So we require the 10B2. If students show up without that one, we'll help them know how to do it. We'll make sure they see it, but it's not something I can take the time out of class to go make sure they do. The reason we do the 10B2 is it's actually the least expensive one that's out there. I think it's like $25 to $30, depending on where you get it. Attendance is mandatory. It's not our rule, it's the CFP Board's rule, right? The CFP Board per contract requires us to have so many contact hours with students. There is a requirement, if you miss a lesson, you're going to have to make up the time. So kind of going on here, the CFP Board requirements, and this kind of gets into that contact hours, the 270 hours that they require. Okay, so that's part of the reason why we've got to have you in class. We've got to have you here. You can't have missed time. The bachelor's degree or higher, that's required now. There's also an experience. There's 2 ways to get there: 4,000 hours of time in the business, basically, if you're an apprentice, or 6,000 hours if you're just kind of going your own way. So it's a 3-year, 2-year kind of process there. We can get in more to that down the road. There's ethics requirements, fitness standards, background checks, declarations forms. So you've got to, kind of like anybody in the business, in the finance world, you got to make certain attestations that you're not doing things that aren't good. And we kind of help the students through this. Our job is to take the student from starting at, hey, we're signing up, we're going to do general principles, all the way through the exam. And then after the exam is the process where you have to actually go and apply to the board and do all this other work. So you're not done once you pass the exam. So the exam process is here. It is a 2-day exam. It's 170 multiple choice questions, 2 3-hour sessions. And the exam has about a 50 to 60% pass rate. That's about where it is on a national basis. Okay, 3 times a year that it's going to be offered: March, July, and November. And we try to correspond these classes to line up to one of those testing windows. Doing this for a long time, and there's a method. I tell you, there's a method to our madness, right? It's kind of the reason why we're so regimented, is the reason why we have success, because it's something that, look, we've done this is the way we're doing it. We're going to kind of check the boxes off and make sure we take the steps that we need to take to get the students to where they need to be. It is done on a computer test now. It is done at a Prometric center. It's something that once you are registered, you'll get a CFP Board ID number. You will go and sign up for the exam. Okay, and that's something we help people with as well. So why choose Manhattan College here? It's taught by professionals in the industry. And I'll tell you, I've heard feedback from all kinds of different students that there's certain classes that are taught by people who are not in the business, that are more academic focused, but it's very hard to relate to the real world. And there's classes that are taught by the actual professionals that are in the business, that it's very easy to relate to what's going on in the real world and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I will tell you from people that we've talked to, the preference here is they want to be taught by somebody who's actually out in the industry doing it on a day-to-day basis. And part of the reason for that, I can say, is there are a lot of programs out there for the CFP curriculum, and a lot of them get way too broad into the whole world of financial planning rather than focusing on what the CFP needs to focus on. And so that's one issue that we do see. The class is structured for that working professional. We're going to bring experiences into the class. We're going to talk about things that are relevant to their life as a working professional and being in the business. This class is set forth to sit for this exam in November of 23. So this class would start, I believe, in February, and it would start, and you would take the exam in 10 months. That's kind of the goal of how we do this. And students who have taken our program with a live review average about 90% pass rate. So that's well above the national average. So what does that mean? They've taken the education. They have then gone straight from the education to a live review program, which is like a test prep, basically a crash course on, okay, we've learned the material. Now, how do we pass this test? They've got about a 90% pass rate. And that's a pretty good rating. Okay. So just some questions here that we've added, just some basic things. Can I register for one module, or do I have to register for them all? You can do one module at a time. However, in order to get the certificate, you have to do them all. Where are they offered? They're online. They're going to be virtual courses. They're Zoom related. That brings us to kind of technology. You got to have certain technology. You've got to have up-to-date technology to be able to do a virtual class. Prices here. The prices here. Each course is $800, includes the textbooks. Get the information after you receive the book. When I teach these classes, I set myself up in front of a camera with a podium. So I lecture when I teach these classes just like I'd be lecturing if I was in a live room. If you miss a class session, you do have to make it up. There is a cost. Okay, and again, this is all available for you. And how do I get eligible to take the CFP exam? Kind of looking on the next side of this. Well, you have to complete all 7 courses, including capstone. And then we'll get you through how to register for the exam once it's time for that. And we've already mentioned a couple of times, there's no cost for any textbooks or anything like that.